Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Stahls UK YouTube channel, LinkedIn account, or Facebook page, wherever you are watching from today. We've got Dave with us from Transfer Express. I'm super excited. I love doing a live or a video collaboration with Dave. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Molly. How are you doing?
I'm good. This is the camera, but you're down here. So if you guys catch me looking down, I'm looking at Dave. So it's more like I'm talking to him. I'm really excited for today's video because we are doing one of our very highly requested P&P promo and promotion talks from February this year. Now, Dave and myself did talks at the event and we didn't record them like we normally do because we wanted to give you guys the highest quality and the most interactive version of it possible. So we have already done the how to market your business with no marketing department, which was the talk that I did at P&P this year. You can go back and watch that on our YouTube channel anytime now. But today, Dave is going to be doing his fantastic Truths About DTF talk, which had an insane amount of attendance. There were so many people crowded around that booth that you were in. So many questions. Everyone was really, really engaged. So I'm very excited for you all to get the first-hand demonstration today. Yeah, I'll hand over to you, Dave.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I would say that I think you might have had a larger crowd than mine.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think with DTF being such a hot topic in the industry, it definitely is a buzzword, and we see more decorators here in the States, and I know that you've seen more decorators across the pond with utilizing direct-to-film transfers where maybe other traditional apparel decorating methods might have fit in, like direct to garment, just because it's more accessible and gives you the same, essentially that benefit of that full color printing in minimum quantities, the one-offs, the on-demand printing, and really empowering decorators to do more. And specifically, decorators just starting out or that don't have a lot of capital or budget to spend. So it really is such a great tool in any apparel decorator's toolbox, whether you are a home-based business, a startup, a clothing brand, or even a commercial print shop.
Yeah, definitely. But there are so many opinions on like how to get into it and like which way to go about it, aren't there? So that's one of the main reasons I'm excited for everyone to hear this talk today, because I think there's so many things and questions people have about whether or not to get the printer, whether or not to use the transfers, what are the pros and cons of both, and we're going to cover all of that. So do you want me to throw your presentation up? Are you ready?
Let's jump right into it.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Let's get started.
We're totally going to cover everything DTF. And so we're going to cover some of the truths of DTF and what I think the real benefit for decorators watching this. And please, if you are watching this live, go ahead and leave comments, because that's like the best thing about these interactive formats is regardless of where we are in the world, we could collaborate together. And everybody here at Stahls in the United States, as well as the UK, Germany, across the globe, we are dedicated to your success. So the real kind of underline of everything we're going to go over today is how you could be the most successful. And we know success looks different for so many different decorators. So that's why we've broken it down in a few different ways here today. And so you could look at it through the lens of your business. You understand your business better than we do. Unless you want to tell us in the comments section too, please let us know about your business, because we could help tailor some solutions. Believe me, over the last 92 years of helping decorators out as Stahls collectively, we have so much knowledge, and odds are we've seen a scenario or a situation or a goal very similar to what you as a decorator have. And we are absolutely here for you 100% through the entire journey to help you find success. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at here. And keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this entire presentation today of how these tips, tricks, the truths, how to use DTF can really make an impact to the success of your business or brand. So let's jump right in. We're going to harness the power here of direct-to-film heat transfers for your business to be as successful as possible. Now, when we talk about success in any business, and especially too in the apparel decorating business, there are things to look at and identify. And it's an easy way to break it down, because sometimes I know I personally am a creative. I got into the apparel decorating industry as a creative, as a designer, as an artist, and have learned, well, let's just say the hard way by experience and making a whole bunch of mistakes. And I know sometimes, especially newer businesses or even established businesses that have just kind of got the ball rolling, and now the ball's rolling faster and faster, and they've never took kind of stock of any goals or, actually written them down. It's just been, I've been too busy. I have too many things to do, especially for those solo entrepreneurs who are doing everything themselves, of course, wearing a ton of different hats, or, the creators maybe, or the businesses that have brought on a few employees and necessarily didn't have any standard operating procedures or goals set in place for what they want their employees to accomplish. So let's look and start identifying goals before we get into any more, DTF talk. So realistically, what is why do you want to bring DTF into your business? We already kind of touched on a little bit of the yes, it's great for full color capabilities, the one-offs, to be able to produce on demand apparel. And with the rise of e-commerce, we've just seen absolutely skyrocket. Selling online is more popular than it ever has been before, and that shows no signs of slowing down. I know retail, it has had a rebound since we've come out of the pandemic, but online sales are still growing at an enormous pace. And what that means for apparel decorators is traditionally you would have to stock a whole bunch of apparel, and all of that becomes risk. So are you looking to boost your sales and revenue, the actual, back end? Is that a goal for your business, to bring essentially more money in? And I think it is for a lot of businesses, but for some small entrepreneurs who have hit kind of I'm making a lot of money and I'm doing it myself, that might not be as as top priority as a lot of people looking to bring in more money. But one way to do that, even if you're not looking to add more employees or buy a space, is to work more efficiently. So that's kind of like the second goal that really we see a lot of decorators strive for. Now, of course, we could go into printing capabilities. So being able to do different capabilities, if you are just a screen printer or you're using other types of heat transfer decoration, and being able to utilize more products. Because I know, coming from a screen printing background, pulling a squeegee on backpacks or tote bags are fairly easy, but like backpacks and the fanny packs or the belt bags, crossbody bags, whatever, they're still fanny packs to me. I'm a kid of the 90s, but so like expanding your capabilities, expanding the products that you could produce in-house. And that's, it goes deeper than just DTF. That's really the benefit of owning a heat press, is that you could do almost any product. The possibilities are really infinite, from the t-shirts, the hoodies, all the way to bags and shoes. I saw you, Molly, just printing slides the other day, right? So and those looked awesome. Summer festival season, got to do the slides. So doing all of that, it's so capable with a heat press, and DTF is a fantastic product for all of that, because you don't have to hit any minimum quantities and stuff like that. So of course, looking into diversify who you're selling to as well. So picking up new customers, branching out into different markets. And that was something that a lot of decorators really embraced, at least the ones that found good success during the pandemic. I know here, specifically at the Transfer Express division of Stahls, athletics were a huge market. It was the sports and athletics. And then, back during the pandemic, all of that essentially came to a screeching halt around the world. And without the ability to adapt or pick up new markets, I don't know if we would be here today, right? But embracing small startup creators, more of the retail space, the e-commerce space. So being able to be agile in your business is definitely beneficial to, any decorator, regardless of size, scope, scale, or what you are, your target audience. So making sure that you could hit those markets. But before you add any investments or look into anything else, take stock of your goals, because that's going to help you complete the dotted line to your success at the end of the day. So when we talk about success and the truths about DTF, of course, not all DTF is created equal. So these successes for DTF really have to be These four that we have on screen here are absolutely crucial in you winning, essentially, right? So we don't want you to fail. I was in a room of decorators at a trade show a couple years ago, right kind of when direct to film became kind of more commonplace in the industry. It's been in the industry for maybe 4 or 5 years now at this point, but really wasn't commercially available since maybe 2021, right? So we were standing in a room of decorators, and everybody's, the hot buzzword, just like it is today, is like, should I buy a direct to film printer? Well, we've seen a very, very similar thing, at least since I've been in the industry in the early 2000s, and that was direct to garment. So when direct to garment hit the industry, it was very much like, oh, this is going to change. This is the game changer, right? And of course, direct to garment, we know now, 13, 14, 15 years later, of course, has its place in the industry, but direct to film definitely is eating some of that market as well. But back to standing in a room of decorators, we essentially asked the question, who bought a direct to garment printer back in the day? And I would say the vast majority of the room raised their hands. So maybe 200 decorators in this room, and they, the majority of the room raises their hands. Yes, we invested in a direct to garment printer. The follow-up question to that was, keep your hand raised if you actually utilize the direct to film printer to pay off and or profit, get back in the black from your printer. So did you pay off your investment? Did you use it to its full potential? And only about 4 people kept their hand raised. And that was really eye-opening, especially for decorators, as the smaller scale and utilizing your budget wisely. And I'm all about success is tied to less risk, right? Less financial risk. And so that's something that, like, all of those decorators took a step back in their business. And of course, no mistake is a mistake if you learn from it, right? It's a learning opportunity. So let's say they had a learning opportunity from that. And from that is where, do you need to purchase a direct to film printer, essentially, is the question, because I want you to be successful. There are other ways that you could utilize this great technology with the same benefits of owning your own printer without the hassle. We're going to get into a little bit specifics here, in just a couple minutes in some of the few of the next slides, but because we're going to break down all the different ways you could utilize direct to film and talk about the pros and cons and the things that the salespeople aren't going to tell you, right? So, of course, right here on screen, we are looking at quality, right? So we see 2 pictures of quality with direct film transfer. So quality transfers is absolutely the first step into succeeding with direct to film. I think, when you break down in terms of, we sent a survey out to decorators, and you break down in terms of like what decorators are the most concerned about improving, marketing, you probably already know, is number 1, but number 2 is maintaining quality. And so quality transfers are going to be the first step. And that's something that's kind of a challenge and or your problem with owning your own printer. And so looking at quality, here are 2 examples of, these are real direct to film transfers that we've ordered. I'm not going to mention any company names whatsoever, but these are available direct to film transfers, right? And you might see everybody and, even purchasing custom transfers, not buying a printer, everybody coming out of the woodwork to sell DTF transfers. But this is stuff that could harm your business, especially if you're looking to grow it and you're selling quality like that first one on the donut, right? Like, there is the horizontal line banding in the prints, and that could be for a variety of different reasons, from substrates to the print environment, to the print heads, to the inks that they're using, incompatible supplies. A whole bunch of stuff could be an issue here. We have entire teams here at Stahls dedicated, and I am way too nerdy about entire printing processes. Any way you could put ink on a substrate, I want to know more, so I pick their brains as much as possible. But looking at that stuff, like, it looks like those old inkjet transfers, or even the, like if you have an at-home desktop printer that's running out of ink, and that's going to severely impact the quality of the goods that you're going to sell if you're going to be, producing t-shirts with this banding in it, which is something that you definitely want to avoid. Now, of course, another thing that we look at right underneath is the grain and registration issues that are also sometimes present in DTF that really kind of take it away from that professional look, that professional quality. And with a heat press, you're capable of professional quality with quality materials and a quality press, and you have an outstanding finished product that stands up to any other decoration method. So, people put down heat applied technology and heat printing all the time, but realistically, it boils down to the application. And it does come to different, all different transfers are the same, but like heat transfer vinyl has been around in the 70s, since the 70s, as a very commercial decorating technique for personalization, names and numbers, football jerseys. Any sporting jersey essentially was decorated with heat transfer vinyl. But when it got in the hands of people applying it with an iron at home is when it really started to take this nosedive in terms of reputation, right? And it's not the case. When applied correctly, it's not going to peel off. When applied with an iron, yeah, it's probably going to peel off, right? So we do see direct to film and proper applications changing a lot of that, but still, so this grain and registration that we see at the bottom. Right there, too, we have this stippling that's supposed to be a solid color. It's simulated as like a spot color print to look like screen printing. I see a question that did come in. Is the banding to do with artwork quality? And absolutely not. We're going to get into artwork quality here in a minute. That banding in the print is 100. I don't want to say 100%. I'm not into absolutes, but the vast majority of the time, it is not present in the file. So you'll see that on screen. If you see banding, sometimes just real in-depth art, kind of illustrator question here. Sometimes those like gradients that you set up will step, but that's not going to be the banding that we see here in that top photo. Back to the bottom photo, that grain is supposed to be a spot color. So that right there is the most prevalent with incompatible inks and carriers. So what's actually happening there, and we'll get into like when we get to the slide where we actually break down kind of what DTF is and the process of how the transfers are created. Essentially what this is doing is that green color, that greenish blue, teal, I don't know, whatever color you want to call it, when the ink is being laid down on the carrier, which is laid down first, essentially it's retracting and beating up like water repellent. We're printing on plastic carriers here. So what's happening is that ink bead is balling up. And then when the white is printed behind it, not only does it create this maybe unsightly texture or unintended texture, but it's also changing the color of the ink printed on top. So that teal is likely a lot darker. It may appear a little bit more blue on screen than what it actually printed here, because now we have white showing through the back of the image, which is not really a great thing to have. We also see the white ink backing out of registration, which is why you see that sharp white line on the bottom of that bottom edge of the image. And that's something that you absolutely want to avoid because it looks out of registration. It's all of those things that are going to give a reason for a customer to not use you again, right? So, these are two main quality issues that we see with direct to film. Aside from application issues, if it's cured improperly, the adhesive isn't melted onto the transfer essentially the way that it should be. So it is not durable to the 50 wash cycles. And we've seen DTF tests exceed 75. I know that our Ultra Color Max DTF here at Stahls is Nike certified, so that they have tested it to their rigorous testing to ensure that it will meet their quality standards as well, and for safety as well, of course, OCOTEX certified and the RSL certified. So CPSIA compliant here in the United States to ensure that it's not going to harm anybody. That's primarily for children, youth, infant clothing, because we don't want to be exposing kids or anybody. I don't want to be exposing adults to any harmful chemicals once it's printed on the shirt. But that is something that we'll talk about here in just a minute, and something that a lot of people don't talk about when they talk about investing in a direct-to-film printer. All right, so enough about quality. Let's talk about efficient production. So I would say the vast majority of direct-to-film still out on the market is a cold peel transfer, which does essentially introduce a secondary step to cover it and reseal to make it look really nice on the garment. My print here on my shirt is a direct-to-film print that is well over a year and a half old now. So still looks absolutely fantastic. But you want to aim for a transfer that's a hot peel. Number one, that single step application is such an efficiency boost, especially if you are you're a solo entrepreneur or you only have one person in production. Allowing yourself to do more with time maximizes your revenue per hour and could increase your revenue daily, monthly, yearly, without necessarily taking on the burdens of additional equipment or hiring other people. So doing more with your time, and essentially if you're doing half the work with pressing one transfer, the impact that makes over the long run is just absolutely enormous. Now, another thing that aids in efficient production is a low temperature application. So be sure you are looking for a direct-to-film transfer that fuses at a low temperature. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So that threshold is about 150 C for like heat sensitive garments. Try to stay under that threshold there because yes, direct-to-film is great. It applies to cotton, polyester, cotton poly blends, spandex, lycra, and all of these synthetic materials that are typically heat sensitive and hard to decorate on with any other method. Especially when we talk about the comparison back to direct to garment, you're limited to cotton or cotton dominant blends. Otherwise, you're not going to get that full adhesion on there. And yeah, like any of those accessories, belt bags, or like the slides or any shoes, forget about it. You're never going to be putting that under your direct-to-garment press and risking hitting any of those, print heads or anything like that. That's going to just completely halt your production. So that's out of the way. So efficient production solely relies on, quality heat press, but that's a completely different conversation that we're not necessarily going to touch on too much here. But look for a hot peel and a low temperature application that's going to keep the orders coming in and out, and you're not spending too much time on press. Of course, the success for a lot of decorators especially just starting out in your local community or competing with more, larger print shops, national brands, is going to be the quick turnaround. So with direct-to-film being a digital process, it is a very, very quick turnaround time that you are able to essentially from the order coming in, 5 days maximum from the time that the order comes in to that you are delivering the printed finished good to your customer. And here I know in the United States, the industry average for any decorated apparel from order taken, like we're talking the end customer here, order taken to delivered apparel at average is 14 days. So 2 weeks of essentially waiting, you're able to meet that deadline or help customers out who are, needing essentially that I have this event this weekend. I know I didn't plan accordingly. We've heard this all before, right? Like I have this event. I absolutely need these shirts by it. Can you make it happen? And with direct film, you absolutely can. With, I'd say the vast majority of any heat applied product, you absolutely can, right? And of course, the success to any business anywhere is happy customers. If your customers aren't delighted with your service or your end product, your quality, any of the above things, the turnaround time, they're likely not to return, right? So when it comes down to quality transfers and quality application, that's always one thing that, that's the worst case scenario, is that there is, it applies fine, it looks great, your customer gets it, and it's not to their quality standards. I would say the majority of the time, so let's say probably 6-7 times out of 10, that customer doesn't actually let you know. They never email you to say, hey, I'm having this issue with this. This doesn't look right to me. The majority of the time, that's 7 times out of 10, they're gone and they're never coming back. And you could be continuously making these mistakes and losing customers. It's so much easier to delight your customers, have them super happy to work with you, because then not only do they recommend them, they recommend you to friends, family, other, coworkers or other businesses. Hey, where'd you get those t-shirts done? Those look great. Oh, I got them from Dave. And they pass along your contact info and they become your most powerful kind of sales channel almost in a way from that word of mouth and grassroots marketing, but also they're coming back to you then. And it's so much easier, having been in marketing myself for well over a decade now, that it's so much easier to keep your current customers happy than have to go out and find new customers. It could get really, really expensive in advertising or really expensive in the investment of your time to learn marketing, or even if you're going to pay a firm to go out and do, Google advertising and SEO for you, or if you want to learn it yourself, it takes time, right? And it takes time away from doing what you do best, whether that be selling apparel or producing apparel or creating designs, whatever it may be that makes the largest impact to you and your business and your goals that you've set for yourself for success as well. So ensure your customers are happy and that they continuously come back to you, and advocate for your business out there in whatever markets that they operate in. So very important things to keep in mind right there. Of course, with direct to film, there's going to be three major ways that you're able to take advantage of it for your business or brand. And these three ways are printing in-house, ordering custom transfers, or outsourcing your fulfillment. So when I said we're going to get a little bit more into the myths, here we go, right? The myths and truths of direct to film. Now, of course, printing in-house, let's cover the pros real quick before we get into the cons, because we see this list is a little long, and this is from real decorators that I have personally talked to over the past 2-3 years that utilize this in-house, as well as, my conversations with our technicians and our team here in-house in the States they do run into these issues with direct-to-film printers. So they're all, as many different varieties of printers there are, a lot of the direct-to-film printers utilize either the same print heads, the Epson print heads, or very similar build ones. So a lot of them still utilize the same components, and so the same things break. We look at those things here in just a minute. But the pros, of course, with printing in-house is that you have the ability for a mega super quick turn. You could essentially print right away as soon as you have an art file. Now, you do have to learn a few software things to get it there, and we'll cover that when we hit the cons. But you are able to essentially print a shirt same day. You have everything in-house. You don't have to wait for any supplies unless you don't have the blanks in-house. And then you're waiting at least a business day or two for those to arrive. But you're able to print in-house. Of course, you do have the quality control, so you could see the transfer right away. Direct-to-film, some direct-to-film printers make it a little bit harder to see the quality up front off the print head, where some of them you have to wait till it kind of comes out of the dryer to ensure that the transfer is printed correctly. But that's also going to correspond to a con, right? And so also you have pricing control. So you know how much that each transfer is going to cost you based on supplies, materials. But one myth is that nobody actually breaks down the supplies, it's however much per square inch or per square meter, and that's going to be your investment into it. What they don't tell you is that operating a conveyor dryer takes a lot of electricity, and with power being more expensive than ever now, that has to factor into it. Other things that are going to factor into your pricing are going to be the maintenance, not just the inks and supplies, the consumable materials, but the maintenance, the power requirements, and some other things that you have to do. So we'll kind of segue into the cons here because all of, you have those expenses to produce transfers, but the main myth that a lot of people don't talk about, and maybe now it's becoming more adopted and being part of the conversation, is the climate that you need the printer to live in. So you will have those banding issues if, say, the humidity in your room, and I say climate because it is temperature as well as the humidity levels that are needed for those print heads to print like they should. So it's very, very important. They will not tell you that you need a climate controlled room. They just want you to have a printer, and then you're going to run into issues. And some of those issues may be present because of the environment that it's in. So not only do you need a air conditioned room, don't put it out in anywhere that there's big temperature swings or near a door that opens and closes rapidly, because you will see maintenance issues and print quality issues with a printer, right? So you do need that, but you also need venting. We have commercial, industrial ventilation systems that move air and extract any fumes in the environment. If you are operating a direct-to-film printer at home, please take caution to not be exposing yourself or family to any harmful chemicals that may be released when you are curing the adhesive, the powder adhesive on the transfer. And that's something that, I think there's been, I've just heard in the industry. I've not seen anything firsthand and don't really want to repeat it, because it's a lot of like he said, she said, and just I haven't been able to see the facts, but there's been those reports of people getting sick from direct-to-film powders. And that's something that you are introducing if you are printing at home. Commercial businesses that utilize it have the ability to put ventilation systems that extract the fumes. But yes, I have not seen anything specific on that, nor am I a health and occupational safety specialist. So I will leave that for them to discuss. Now, of course, the largest con is going to be the initial expense of the printer, just like what we asked those decorators who had picked up direct-to-garment printers. It is a large, hefty investment. And while direct-to-film printers are a fraction of the cost of what those direct-to-garment printers were, direct-to-film is that lower price point and a little bit easier to adopt. However, it still is an initial expense. And that initial expense up front is risk for your business that for some decorators may be make or break. And we do see a lot of decorators who are apparel decorators, not transfer printers. They're apparel decorators now trying to sell custom transfers on the side as well to help pay off that initial expense of the machine, because they're not running it all the time. Just like with a direct-to-garment printer, if you're not running a direct-to-film printer every day, you can't just flip the switch and turn it on and it's going to print fantastic quality. You're going to have to run print head cleaning cycles. You're going to have to cycle through ink. There is maintenance that needs to happen. White ink in a digital form is, I think anybody using a direct-to-garment printer or a direct-to-film printer pulls their hair out because of the white ink clogging in the lines. You need to make sure that the ink isn't separating, right? So everything settles and now your ink isn't fully opaque. And when it gets to where the pigment is actually at in the ink, it completely clogs the print heads. And then you get that banding in the print, right? So not necessarily introduced by the file. Of course, we talked about quality control as a pro because you have the quality control in-house. But the flip side of that coin is that quality control becomes your issue to fix now. And that's going to pull you away from selling or decorating apparel, actually producing apparel, or, being creative or doing whatever you want to do, spending time with your family, whatever it may be. Now those quality issues completely halt your business, completely halt production, and completely stop you from doing anything else you were doing until that issue is fixed. We hear from decorators all the time who, I was shut down for 3 weeks. There's one company in Pennsylvania that essentially fully embraced direct-to-film, right? They essentially took a screen printing shop and, the owner of it phased out and said, I built this company up, super proud of what I've done. And it's time for my son to take over the business. Well, the son's seeing the rise of e-commerce and on-demand fulfillment, not having to stock or print these bulk runs of inventory. Hey, we could help people sell online, right? So essentially removed a whole bunch of carousel screen printing presses and put direct-to-film printers in there. But it wasn't until they had 3 or 4 of them go down that essentially halted all production. And when people are relying on you and now you're pushing out turn times that you don't understand how big of a, kind of barrier that becomes as a business owner until you hit it. And it's a very unfortunate situation to hit. And now you're tinkering and troubleshooting and, and if you don't, then essentially your investment is now just a paperweight, which I've heard actual decorators refer to, at least direct-to-garment printers, as a paperweight. I was in a shop in in San Diego, California last year. We did our heat press transformation. If you haven't seen that series on Stahls TV, it's a great inside look at large and mid-size print shops. We explore the journey of kind of how they came up. But Brian Geffen was the owner there, and he's taken us on a tour of the shop, just flips open a closet door and goes, and there's my $20,000 paperweight, pops it back closed, and we moved on. And of course, in that room was a direct-to-garment printer. So utilizing similar technology, direct-to-film, I don't want it to be a paperweight for you, right? I want you to be successful and not lose out on all of that money, right? So, of course, moving on from those quality issues, we do have the supply chain issues. And this has been a little bit alleviated, right? Since I think the shipping kind of kerfluffles, the shipping issues coming out of the pandemic have eased a little bit. So the logistical issues, but still the supply chain of inks, films, adhesives, right? Suppliers will run out, go out of business, or in some cases completely change recipes that may not be compatible now. The same exact product may not be compatible with your printer or with the huge stock of rolls that you have, right? Now here at Stahls, we do have commercial lab testing facilities where we maintain a consistent, or, we strive to maintain a consistent product, because we know that decorators just like you are essentially, relying on it to be the same for your reorders to keep your customers happy, right? That was a major success goal that we were looking at. So, we've ran into issues where we've received shipments of the same exact SKU number, essentially the same exact product of adhesive or inks or carrier, but we have the testing equipment to test it before it goes to production to ensure that it's going to maintain that consistent quality. And like the pigments of the inks will be completely different. All of the colors, the color profiles that we've set on our printers through the RIP software, all completely change. It's the same product. What happened? And it's not... Decorators, small individuals don't have the liberty of being able to test that. And when we, contacted the supplier, hey, this looks like a different batch. Oh, no, it's the same batch, same SKU number. Like, here's our testing results. They didn't believe us until we showed the testing results to be like, this isn't the same product that we were receiving before. We need to correct that. Let's look into that, right? Where a lot of smaller businesses don't have that. So, that new batch of ink, the color completely shifts. Why? That new batch of carrier, man, why am I getting these banding or these stippling issues now in this? There's all of these become your issue to troubleshoot with owning your own printer, and could really throw, a log into your regular workflow. And that's something that you definitely want to avoid. That's going to impede your success, your revenue, your efficiency, right? All of those steps to reaching your success, like all of that now is essentially on hold. Now, of course, we already kind of touched on the power requirements, just going down the list here, is that, it's never factored in. You need to factor in the cost of labor of you maintaining the machine, babysitting the machine, preparing software or preparing the artwork in the software for it to print properly, as well as the inks, carriers, and adhesives. So when they tell you, oh, it costs this per square inch to produce this at home, ask that salesperson for that direct-to-film company, like, does that include utilities to the electricity required to run the dryer? Oh, does that include what I should bank? Because it's not if, it's when things will break. Your print heads will clog. You will have to replace print heads if you plan on doing any serious printing with direct-to-film. And also, if you just plan on dabbling in it, you're going to run into those issues too, because the ink lines will clog without ink continuously running through that system. So those are really a lot of the myths that are out there in the industry. And when somebody's like, that's, it's so cheap. Like, yeah, when you're just looking at the consumables of it, it might seem really, really cheap. But are you also factoring in, the broken down cost of the machine? If you break it down per hour, how much it's going to take to pay off that machine? Are you counting that towards it, right? So make sure when you're factoring in your pricing, and this could impact a lot of smaller decorators who necessarily haven't done those profitability or time studies themselves to know how much they're making per hour, or accurately pricing they're, excuse me, accurately pricing their services, because they might be selling themselves short there. And we definitely don't want that to happen to you, right? Let's factor in all of those costs associated, and let's give an accurate price, or at least know. Knowledge is power, and it's really going to be the key to being successful, is knowing how much it does cost you at the end of the day, not just in consumables. How much does it cost you to produce? And then, of course, maintenance and print heads and everything else fun that goes with that is definitely another large aspect of the cost. You are going to have to fix things. You are going to have to babysit it. I liken it to like 3D printing. Yeah, it'd be sweet to just hit a button and it 3D prints. But with the 3D printer that I had, I think I spent more time troubleshooting why it wasn't printing properly than it actually printing properly. And we've heard that from so many decorators who invested in direct-to-garment printers, or here now in 2024, direct-to-film printers. So definitely something to keep in mind if you are looking at bringing it in-house, right? And just to reduce the risk, the next way to do it is going to be ordering custom transfers. You get the same benefits. You get that same quick turn time, you get all the same benefits of direct-to-film printing with a lot less of the cons, which could help you just starting out get more orders and make more profit, right? So the pros here, number one, out front, that largest con of investing yourself is now you don't have any major investment. All of your cash is still cash flow in your business, and it's not tied up in an expensive machine, And so now here we have high quality, but I put an asterisk on that too, because when you are ordering custom from a reputable supplier, right, they are continuously advancing, just like how we are continuously monitoring the supplies and inks and materials that we're using. However, if you're ordering from somebody who has a less expensive direct-to-film printer, you may see those banding issues, or you may see those incompatible stippling, right? Those photos, like I mentioned that I showed earlier, came from us purchasing direct to film from somebody else out in the industry, and we saw those quality issues. So make sure that if you're ordering custom, find a reputable company who has that climate control system, who has those quality printers, and is continuously investing into the latest and greatest. Which that was something from that we didn't mention as an explicit con, but I know, going to trade shows and having been on the trade show circuit for 4 years now, right? So seeing all that the industry has to offer. And of course, I already mentioned that I am a super print nerd. So I love to see the new technology coming out from all of these different suppliers and companies. And the innovation in the industry is just it. I applaud it. I absolutely love it, right? But I've seen those, a printer a year ago is now completely obsolete, right? The same company has released maybe 2 versions of printers past that. So that huge investment that you took into your business could be obsolete very, very quickly. And especially as the supply chain evolves to strive higher quality, it may render your printer obsolete, right? So that's one thing with ordering from a custom reputable supplier. You're always getting the latest and greatest. You're never going to have outdated technology when you find one that you like, that gives you the turnaround and the quality that you need. So high quality there is definitely worth that asterisk, but you will see much higher quality ordering transfers than what you could produce in-house. It's very similar to this, like the screen printing ethos that I always kind of like fall back on, is like when you are manually screen printing, you're essentially trying to mimic the way that an automatic screen printing press because of its consistency, right? With any printing method, you want consistent, predictable, and easily repeatable results. And that's going to be the key to that efficient production there, right? So yeah, definitely with that. Now, quick production with ordering custom, you'll find places that ship next day, and in some cases, even same day, if ordered before a certain cutoff time, right? So being able to still take advantage of that quick production. And if you're ordering blanks in as well, what's the value of being able to have your own printer to produce? Hey, right now, I'm producing a transfer right now that's literally going to sit here on a shelf for a day or two and wait for the apparel to arrive, right? When they both could arrive on the same time without the investment of having to babysit this machine, maintain it, get a climate controlled room for it, get the ventilation to get any fumes out of the building, things like that. Now, of course, without owning a printer, there is no maintenance. The quality issues or any troubleshooting is somebody else's problem, and you could still focus on what makes the largest difference for your brand or business, whether that be the creative, the selling, or producing apparel. It's not going to throw a wrench in your plans, and it's not going to slow anything down, right? And if there is an issue, the supplier that you're ordering from, be it Stahls or somebody else, that is essentially for them to take care of, right? It's their problem. And then you don't have any inventory. You don't need to continuously order stocks of supplies, the carriers, the inks, the adhesives, anything like that, right? You don't need to hold any of that. You could order only when you need it, Now, of course, the cons here is because you don't have anything in-house, you do need things shipped to you. So that is one thing to keep in mind. And of course, the cons, I should have put an asterisk here too, at a fixed cost, which could be a good thing as also a bad thing, right? So the fixed cost doesn't allow you to necessarily adjust your budget for other customers or help people out, as we all like to do as entrepreneurs or business owners or just friends, right? There is a fixed cost to the transfer, but it could be a pro too, because it makes quoting orders and ensuring you are profiting incredibly easy, right? If you know the fixed cost of what this transfer is going to cost, I know here, this one was just a couple cents. I'm trying to look at myself in the camera to show my left chest print, but at this size, it's very, very inexpensive to print. But I'm not, I'm going to mark this up for a customer because it still is decorated apparel, right? And that's the way that almost any printing pricing has been set historically since the beginning of time. It's like if you are within a printing area, that like you're paying the same price whether you're using this much ink or all this ink. And the best thing about direct film is that this could be a full color logo with each letter a different color, and it's going to be the same price regardless if it's a one color or a full color logo. So question coming in, what would you recommend I tell my customers as a realistic turnaround time if I am using DTF transfers? That's going to depend on a few different variables for you specifically as a business owner and how busy you are. If you're currently like 2 days behind from where the order is being taken, whether you're ordering the transfers the same day that the order comes in, or if you're having to wait for art, or you send your customer a proof of a mocked up file, and then essentially have them approve it, and then you order the transfers, right? Reducing the risk that you're carrying, right? And delighting your customers so that they have this expectation with that mock-up and they approve it. So when they say, hey, this word's spelled wrong, like, you submitted the file, I showed it to you. But a realistic turnaround time probably is 3 to 5 business days is what we've seen anybody using direct to garment or direct to film. Now, of course, as part of like the questions that you'll ask your customers in any project, right? When I was just doing freelance design, if I'm decorating apparel, I always ask, is there a date that you need this by? Because while you may look at a normal turnaround time and they see your normal turnaround time of 5 business days and they're like, oh, cool, that'll arrive the day before the event. Something might happen where production might get delayed by a day. Now, you might email a customer or you might not email a customer at all, but just asking them up front, hey, is there a date that you absolutely need this by? Because then I'm just going to reshuffle it in my schedule. Or if it's like, oh yeah, I need it by, next week on Monday, then it's like, okay, I'm going to look at ways that I could get this done for you, either tell you no, and sorry, I can't help you with this tight of a turnaround time, or shift things around and possibly even charge a rush fee on top of that. So that's just going to be extra revenue in your pocket. But yeah, I would say industry standard, probably right around that 3 to 5 business days is far more than acceptable and much faster than a lot of other people that you're going to see. And, barring Amazon, that's ruined e-commerce for everybody, because it's like, oh, I could order it and have it delivered to my door. If you live in like a metropolitan area in a city, like, oh, I could have it to my door in 2 hours. Cool, sweet, right? It's ruined it for everybody else who's like, no, this is a product produced on demand, right? And also to quantity. Like if somebody's ordered 3,000 pieces, like just your time alone is going to take time to be able to produce it. So definitely looking at that. So what percent markup for profit should I do when using DTF? That's a fantastic question. And it does depend, as we were just talking about, like print sizing. It depends on the specifics, but you'll find that the vast majority of almost any industry just marks up by 100%. Like whatever that blank costs, I'm marking it up. If it's a 3-pound blank, I'm marking it up to 6 pounds. That's what I'm going to charge the customer for the t-shirt, because I'm handling it, I'm ordering it, and you make a lot of profit from marking those things up. So with direct to film prints, marked up typically around that 100%. So this cost me, 1 pound to produce. I'm going to charge 2 for the decoration. It does depend a little bit on your overhead. And if you've done overhead, like calculations of what your operating costs are, you want to ensure that you're hitting it. Cost times 2, if you have not, is a simple way of looking at it. And then when you start to get into wholesale and selling more higher quantities, now direct to film could get pricey in those higher quantities compared to say like a screen printed transfer, especially in like a spot color design. If I was doing a shirt like this that just says Stahls, right? I could move my hand out of the way so you could actually see it, right? So if I'm just doing a print like this for the entire company, I'm not using direct to film. I would be using a screen printed transfer because the total price per piece is going to be a lot cheaper, right? So direct to film is kind of one of the myths, is like, it's this solve all these problems and it's great. And yes, it is absolutely fantastic. I'm not putting that down. But if you want to maximize your profit, there are other methods to be able to produce stuff. So when you start getting to that wholesale, kind of back to that what percent markup should I put in for myself? When you start getting into wholesale, maybe that starts dipping down to a 60% markup, a 70% markup, maybe a 50% markup on the transfer itself. But I found what I'll do in pricing out a job is, I don't own a business where I'm, essentially decorating apparel all the time. So kind of, on the side when I'm doing orders, it's just take the cost. And we've heard this from decorators too. Take the cost of both the blank and the transfer. You could factor in your labor if you wanted to, but if you just double the cost of all of that, odds are it's going to cover the time it's going to take you to produce. It's also going to allow you room to pay for any expenses as the electricity, as we talk about heat presses being plugged in, and then any maybe software subscriptions, maybe that new MacBook that you bought for your business, like factoring into little tiny fractions of that, and then still adding profit onto your business. For anybody who is absolute serious about taking their business further, conduct just a kind of what are your costs? Do that whole full overhead assessment coming down to the rent, and if you're operating out of your home, take it, take a portion of your mortgage. Like I use 1/10 of my home for my business. Take 1/10 of your mortgage or your rent payment and put that towards your overhead costs so that you have a clear cut look and view of how much money do I need to make to be profitable, right? And then that's going to help you adjust that markup percentage specifically to you and your business. But in a lot of cases, the easy way is just doubling the cost of everything. And then what I'll do too is then I'll go to Google, just type up custom t-shirts, find number 1 on Google, get a quote from them for the exact same apples to apples, regardless of print method, because a lot of customers do not, I always say, like, they don't care how the sausage is made, right? They will say like, I want a silk screen shirt or whatever they're used to hearing. I want a screen printed shirt. It's like, what you really just want is an image on apparel. That's what you want, right? And it's your job as a decorator to connect those dots and bring their visions to life, right? So that it doesn't matter what print method that you're direct comparing to, as long as it's the same blank, same artwork, right? And then just look at that price. And you'll find that your supplies as a decorator, even doubling the cost of everything to pass on to your customer is still going to be a less per piece rate than the national competitor. So, and in some cases too, like, so something like this, if I just doubled this cost and the shirt is what, let's say 4 pounds, 8 pounds total with the markup. This was 2. So now I'm doubling, or this was 1. So now I'm doubling that to 2. So it's 10 pounds total for the cost on this, and even doubled in cost, right? Like, I'm not going to sell a decorated shirt one quantity for just 10 pounds, right? You're gonna bump that up to be a little bit more in the acceptable range of what makes sense for you. So things like that to really kind of keep in mind. That's a fantastic question. And one, like I said, like looking at it through the lens of your own business, depending on how far along you are. And if you do know all of your overhead expenses have to play into that, ensure you are profiting. I will say I have totally been there where I thought I had a good price, didn't do a full like cost analysis, didn't do cost times 2, was just trying to meet somebody's budget. And then at the end of the day, I did an analysis back through and was like, all right, well, that cost that. I forgot to roll in the shipping cost. I didn't roll in taxes on that. And now that was, that took more time to do than what I originally expected. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, all right, cool. They got a great deal and I lost a lot of money doing this. I made nothing. I don't want that to happen to you. And that was one of those times when I say, like, any of those mistakes are not mistakes if you learn from them. Oh boy, did I learn from it. And I would love to pass on that same knowledge for you not to make that same mistake, because it really, really, I went back to be like, I don't think I made money on this job. And in fact, I lost money on this job, right? Where, like, if you're not doing that and you're doing job after job after job after job, you could be setting yourself a lot farther in the hole secretly. And you could adjust that by just doing a little bit of cost analysis or pricing accordingly in the market. So ordering custom transfers, we'll go back to the slides here. Ordering custom transfers, absolutely very, very important as we talk about the method of integrating direct to film into your business with a lot less of the hassles, the same benefit of being able to do it. Now, of course, you could take that all the way and fully outsource all of your fulfillment, right? So the pros are you don't have to actually produce it at all. You're essentially outsourcing everything. You don't have any equipment investments. You don't have any supply, stock, material, nothing to buy, as well as no maintenance whatsoever, right? But in turn, you're essentially giving away the vast majority of your profits, where you may be making, that 100% markup. Now you're making 3%, 4%, 5%, maybe tops of the total sale. So while you are reducing how much work you have to put into it, the trade-off there is pretty hefty into the profit margin. So you'll see realistically only like large volume using outsourced fulfillment, or brands that don't focus on custom apparel as their main source of income. We see this a lot with like social media influencers, right? They're making money off the money that they're making on social media through endorsements or anything else, right? But people ask for merch and they don't want people to make bootleg merch, and they want to be able to sell things. So they outsource a lot of the fulfillment. They're not relying on the revenue from printed apparel. It's great and it's a nice little bonus add-on, but they're not relying on it. And quality is kind of out of your hands, right? So like when you're just building your business, the two things that are important, right, are quality of the printed product and the profit the revenue that you're bringing back into your business to invest in your business to take it higher. Or if you are decorating full time and don't have any other business, it's keeping the lights on, it's putting food on the table, right? So definitely things to look at there when we look at outsourcing everything. Now, of course, there is variable turn times that do kind of adjust, especially in the peak seasons. So like holiday shopping rolls around, the turn times may get extended from that 3 to 5 day window that we see as an industry standard to a little bit longer. And it's usually right when you're selling the most, which could, force the decision for your customer at the end of the day to go to just Amazon or something like that to purchase something instead of coming to you. So definitely something that you need to keep in mind there. Now it does have a fixed cost to it. That also may be variable as, the price of garments change, the price of materials change, or inflation, or whatever it may be. But the pricing is fixed. So you're able to look at what it's going to cost you, and you could set your price to the end customer to kind of just be that middleman to say, all right, I'm going to scoop this much off the top. Now you are going to have a much smaller window to be able to add your own profit onto that as well. Just because of that fixed cost, and you can't price yourself out of the job by adding too much onto that, right? So they're just going to go to another printer right there. And then of course, shipping is still something you need to factor into your pricing because not only some companies may be able to drop ship it essentially on your behalf to your end customer, but then you don't get to see quality at all. Or you could have it shipped to you, where then you either have your customer come to pick it up and you could inspect the quality and know what to expect as a decorator, and maybe as that more, detail oriented eye to make sure that your customers are happy. Because if your customer receives quality this way that you've never seen, it's coming from a third party vendor, you're exposing yourself to that phone call of like, hey, so this doesn't look great, or I have, this issue with it, that now you have to go through this entire game of telephone to even find out if they'll replace it, or if it's going to be on you to pay full price to replace it, right? So that's one thing that you want to ensure your customers are happy. Back to that like major success point that we first talked about in there, right? So I know that we're kind of already pushing time a little bit, and I appreciate everybody's comments and hanging out with us here live. But let's talk about kind of some tips for success that are going to really help you out regardless of how you are decorating. So with any printing method, the saying has always been good in, good out. And while digital printing methods do kind of lower the bar a little bit, where you could get away with like a little bit less resolution file, it still is absolutely important. So high resolution images for direct to film turn out the absolute best. They are going to be nice, crisp, and sharp, and give you that appearance of a professionally printed shirt. So good in, good out. Make sure your artwork files are fantastic. And or if you're taking customer supplied artwork, ensure that the artwork file is good before sending it to a printer, configuring your own artwork to be able to print that at your at-home printer. And that it will work with your RIP software. There's great upscaling tools now, but one thing that we'll touch on here is like the hard edge that DTF needs to be a quality transfer and a quality appearance without like a weird halo on it, right? On your image. So you get these nice sharp edge lines that look like a screen printed result, right? Like look like what people are expecting when they're ordering custom apparel, right? So the top image here, 300 DPI, nice and crisp, where a 72 DPI file is going to have these jagged edges, maybe look pixelated, or sometimes even on like the edges of the file, if there's transparency in it, right? So it absolutely needs that hard edge, because otherwise white ink is printing behind your whatever color ink that you're printing. So it's, say, printing on a black shirt like this. If we had a little bit of that fuzziness on the edge, it's going to have a white halo around the entire image while still looking blocky and jagged like this. So definitely something that's going to impact the finished quality of the transfer, right? Now, the next tip here is knocking out to the garment color. So like we could have had black ink printing in the hair area of Fast Danny here, or in the helmet area, the seat belts, the donut, the hand. There's all of these areas of shadow that were knocked out to the garment. And this really improves the hand feel and the comfort for the wearer at the end of the day. Any print method, right? Not heat transfers, not direct to film, any print method. If you are putting a huge, large area of ink coverage, the fabric of your shirt is not going to be able to breathe, and people are not going to think that is comfortable. Now, of course, sublimation is essentially just dyeing the fabric, so it has zero hand feel to the garment. So it's not new with direct to film where people are like, man, it just feels big and heavy. A plastisol screen print, pulling a squeegee, traditionally printed as a large full ink coverage area, is also going to feel awful. I felt direct to garment prints. Large, heavy, full ink coverage on a dark shirt like this with the white underbase. You have so many layers of ink piled up on itself, and especially the printers that don't use like the heavily pigmented inks, so like the cheaper materials and supplies, to get those fully opaque results, you're laying down so much, it's also going to feel heavy on the shirt, right? So any print method, unless you're doing that water base or discharge screen printing, which is incredibly tricky to master, you're not going to get a fantastic, oh wow, soft hand feel of the shirt. I will say that I can't feel my print. Of course, when I was trying to look at the camera, I could tell you, like, I can't, like, this feels like I might be on the print. This feels like I'm on the print too, right? So like it's how you are using the product, and knocking it out is something that I mean, and I also love like this image here. I love that screen printed look, right? So any opportunity I can to knock out the garment color and use that as an additional color in the design, I am 100% all for. I personally think it looks fantastic, timeless, classic, and it makes you look like a pro. It improves the hand feel of almost any decoration method on fabric, right? It's just much more comfortable to wear. It breathes, it moves, it stretches, you know, it jives along with us throughout the day. So these are things to take in mind when you are designing for any process, let alone DTF here too, because that's something that, like, you know, your customer might not think about, right? And you positioning yourself as a pro to say, hey, I see your artwork does have this black background in it. I'm going to knock it out to the black of the garment. And traditionally you would do that in screen printing to say like, hey, I'm not going to print black ink on a black shirt. That's a waste of my time burning a screen and pulling a squeegee, inking up the screen. And I have to wash it out now for it to literally be the same color, right? So that's something that you would always do. But letting your customer know, hey, I'm going to do this. It's gonna be a fantastic result, and it's a fantastic result every single time, right? So now let's talk about those hard edges, right? The fades out to the garment edge is definitely something that is capable with direct to garment when we compare the two print methods, not capable with direct to film, because you do need the white ink behind any CMYK ink that's printing. So CMYK is how anything is essentially printed in full color: cyan, magenta, yellow, and key, or black. That's essentially what the K stands for, right? CMYB doesn't sound that great. CMYK sounds better. But essentially that those inks are not fully opaque. And you'll see that even with like direct to garment printing, right? Like you don't have to print that white underbase on a white shirt or a light colored shirt. As soon as you go to a dark colored shirt, you absolutely have to put that white underbase. So that's exactly what we're looking at here with direct to film as well. So any color that is not printing at 100% opacity is getting white put behind it. So you can't like fade out to the garment edge. However, you can do something like we're looking at here in the Heat Press Pro Day graphic, where it is half-toned. So you could have that illusion of it and be able to fade to the edges while still maintaining a dot, right? So we'll get into, I think the next slide here is, yes, actually the real process. But before we jump into it, could you put me full screen, Molly, and I'll show an example. I have to grab one of them. I'm trying to think which one. I should have had it like already stashed here right by me. But I'll grab this one. This one's pretty cool.
While Dave grabs his transfer, I just want to say thank you to everyone sticking with us. We've got a lot of viewers and we have had quite a lot of questions today as well. So we're going to stick around for a little bit longer. So make sure you get any last questions in for Dave.
Perfect. Thank you, Molly. So this one right here, this is a direct to film print that I have with me on my buddy Marcus the mannequin. And so you could see that we do have fades up around these lights where the pants come down, and then even over to this side where like the ball, the arm, everything looks really great. Let's get up real close to it. Hopefully my camera could focus on it, but it's actually a half-toned image. So this one is having all of these little dots, and that's the benefit of printing with like a supplier who knows what they're doing and could maintain this quality, is that they could get down to I think it's a 0.018 inch. I don't know exactly what that converts to the metric system, but like very, very small dot size where this is washed. This has maintained these dots on here, and they haven't fallen off. And they are these tiny, tiny little dots. Now, of course, this entire image is half-toned to bring in some of that black, but you can't feel, there's no crunch to this print. You can't feel this print. Even these pants are like a fairly large ink coverage area. Like, you can't feel this print. Breaking it up makes it breathable and really great, easy to use, and a fantastic result that could mimic what you traditionally see with, say, direct to garment printing, right? And so I have a few other examples that we could go through, just because we're talking about the edge, and I love it. It's stuff that we're working on to make sure that we could really kind of push the industry forward, innovate, and ensure quality for you at the end. Now, there is a video about half-toning DTF, if you are interested, that we just released a couple weeks ago, where I go through the entire process. If you don't know Photoshop, might seem a little intimidating, but I break it down very, very simply and easily, even talking about the tools that we're using. So you don't need to have, the college degree in design like I have, or the student loans that I'm still paying on for that to learn how to use Photoshop, right? So let me just grab a few more examples, and then we'll wrap up here back to the slideshow.
So something that Dave mentioned during those slides is that I really want to touch on again is that this isn't just for DTF prints. Having show through on those transfers works with every single kind of transfer. Like the screen print one I'm wearing today, there is a lot of show through on that, and it does just make it so much more comfortable. And I think it gives it a higher quality feel as well. So not just DTF, screen print, ultra color, everything.
Absolutely, 100%. So here is a transfer that we're looking at. So it looks kind of weird, just printed, right? These guys playing basketball, but you can see that the white ink covers even some of these small dots, and it's trapped in too. So that's what a good printer is going to do, or a good rip software. So like you could kind of see, that focused perfectly. So you could kind of see there's a slight black kind of edge around the white here. Now, this is the back side of the transfer, so this is our white adhesive. But so that's to ensure, even on these small dots, that the adhesive's grabbing onto it, as well as you're not seeing that out of registration white. The white is not peeking out from behind the transfer here on the front side, right? So this is what we've got on the front side. You can see here that we have all of those small dots that make up this image that kind of jumps out from the shirt. So let's grab our actual shirt here. I'm just going to set that down to not ruin that transfer, and go through my my selection here. And hopefully I have that exact example here, which I should have somewhere. Here it is. I've got too many shirts. You can tell that I've been half toning a lot of things, pushing the limits, like these, like fading out to the edges in those clouds. Here, like full photographic reproductions. Even this one. This was one of the initial tests where my dot size was a little heavy, but all cool behind the scenes things. So that transfer that we were just looking at, when printed on apparel, this is the exact transfer of it, that it really does kind of jump out from the background, right? So how cool is that? It looks like a photograph as you're wearing it, right? Nobody's looking at t-shirts this up close, right? They're wearing them. So where somebody's going to be wearing it this far away, it looks absolutely phenomenal, right? So that stuff you can achieve, but you need that hard edge. So while you can't like smoothly fade, you could mimic it in these, these little half tones as you see it. Like the ball is a really cool aspect of it. The light's really hard. I have my ring light over there lighting me up, so you could see exactly where those dots are, the way that the light is hitting the transfer here. All right, I can't do this backwards. All right, back to the slides, Molly.
We've had some people comment saying that those examples are really helpful, though. So I think your stack of t-shirts was definitely worth showing.
Oh yeah, I've got the full stack. This is we've done a lot of tests because we wanted to ensure that like that dot stays. So that stuff that like if you want to run your own testing in house, this is a lot of time. And I mean, we have the resources here at Stahls that we use to help your business out, right? So like this is one of my favorites. Now this one has been washed 55 cycles, so you could still see like the dots on the edge, the inside of this graphic is not halftoned. So the only thing I halftoned on this image, which was a little bit more complicated of a process in Photoshop, and we're working on ways to make it easier, but essentially any place where there wasn't 100% transparency got a halftone. So like all of these little fades, even in here, like where it starts to fade under here, where it looks great, it feels absolutely fantastic. And as a digital print, it could be mistaken for direct-to-garment. Even some of the halftone ones that I brought to a trade show, Charlie, one of the Charlie Taubleeb is been in the industry for a long time and has helped so many people learn how to screen print. I was showing them to our VP of Art and Creative, Dane Clement, who is absolutely a brilliant mind as well in terms of art and decorating. He's been in the industry, much longer than I have, and has been designing for the industry. And but so I'm showing him my initial test and like, hey, check this out. Look what we're doing with direct to film. And Charlie comes over, an expert screen printer, is like, man, those halftones just look a little big, but like that's a pretty good print. Feels good. And I'm like, Charlie, this is direct to film. He thought they were screen printing, right? So like you really could use direct to film to be anything you want it to be for your business. In a full color image like that, it absolutely is perfect. On a dark color, on a light color, it doesn't matter. You're able to do it. I don't think I have any on light colors. That green might be the only thing I've got. But yeah, so we wanted to ensure that before we show it, that those dots don't wash off. And if you hit the minimum of the specs, they don't wash off. They hold on there and give you an absolutely fantastic result. So I think if you pull the slides up, Molly, we should be. There we go. Perfect in the same spot. I was hoping we didn't have to go back to the beginning. I have a note of what slide we were on too. So to jump back into it. So as we talk about, this is much more of a stylized halftone when we see on this Heat Press Pro Day graphic, right? I did have one hanging around somewhere too that I could show you this exact graphic, but this is, all of these dots are triple, quadruple the size of the minimum, right? So it was a very stylized look, but as the examples that I showed, you could definitely get down to a much more photorealistic result. And that is because this is where it comes down. So a minimum line size of 1 millimeter. So that would be the minimum size for the dot that you would want to print there. So essentially this is the way that transfers are produced. The CMYK ink is printed in reverse on the carrier. A white ink backing is printed right on top of it, like we saw in my example here. So there is the color. The CMYK is printed first on this side of the film. Then the white ink is printed behind it. So the back side of the transfer looks like this. These are wetter bars that you see on almost all direct-to-film transfers that essentially are ensuring that all print heads are printing clearly. If you see anything wrong with this, typically it's that you may see some issues with your transfers, whether it be banding or like if the yellow just drops out of the color bar here, the yellow is probably not printing in this section of the image as well. So definitely one thing to keep in mind for quality control with direct-to-film printers. But then after the ink is laid on it, the adhesive is sprinkled on top, and that powder adhesive is going to grab any white ink, which is essentially the wet ink that's sitting on top of everything. And then it's going to go through the conveyor dryer. That adhesive is going to gel up and cure and hold on to the inks. And then when fully pressed under the temperature and pressure of a heat press, that adhesive is going to expand, embed itself into the fibers of the shirt, and be there permanently. Or, many washes. The 50 washes is the industry standard for the lifetime of a print, right? So you'll typically see within those 50 washes, like, some, I don't want to make generalizations here because some definitely are, more resilient than others, but you're going to start to get holes in your shirt. You're going to get the fabric starts to wear out after a while, especially if you're drying them as well. All that lint that you pull out of the lint filter in the dryer is fibers that are no longer in your shirts. So where they come from, that's where you're going to get your holes, or the weird kind of, I know some budget tees. I just washed one from that I got. It was a free t-shirt, but I just washed it and like the one side shrunk and the other one didn't. So like even now the graphic is twisted, and it looks straight when I wore it the first time, but like, yeah, so that's what you get with some blanks, right? So of course, when we talk about proper application, and we kind of talked about this throughout the entire presentation here today, quality heat press, having accurate time, temperature, pressure, and peel is going to get you the quality results, regardless of what heat transfer type you're using. And ensure, like we talked about too, that not all direct-to-film is the same. Find that one with the low temperature application and apply to the precise settings, right? So like, I know our direct-to-film applies at a low temperature. If you apply it at a hot temperature, you're actually burning the adhesive and it doesn't stick as well as it should, especially in that initial application with the hot peel that should be effortless. Like just peel the carrier away and bam, we're done. It doesn't work out that way if you're at too high of a temperature. So make sure you're reading the instructions and applying to the specific recipe for the specific transfer that you are using. And then of course, just a little tidbit of success at the end here. Of course, heat sensitive decorations, because direct-to-film is so great for those synthetic fibers, or like spandex where it stretches a lot. Like the stretchability of direct-to-film is absolutely fantastic. But ensuring that you have accurate pressure is the first step. Sometimes you'll think the press is too hot or a garment scorching when in fact you're really just flattening the fibers. And if you washed it, those fibers kind of come back to life, versus just like making like a crop circle, right? You're just like pushing the corn down, you're pushing the fibers and they lay flat, and that changes the sheen. So like when you look at the shirt, you're like, oh, it looks a little shiny there where it just came off the press. Your pressure could be too high. Most DTF is that mid-range pressure, so it's perfectly acceptable, that you shouldn't be flattening the fibers of the shirt. Of course, using a reduced heat transfer. Reducing the heat is the best way to combat heat sensitivity, right? Using a cooler application temperature. So typically that's going to be under 150 degrees Celsius, and under 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Using the correct cover sheet too could really help. Depending on what product you're using, you may or may not be able to get away with a cover sheet, and protecting your essentially the outside of the apparel. And then of course, for heat sensitive decorations, the last step, if like it just does not apply, is applying heat from underside. So like if I scorch the inside of my shirt, nobody sees it, right? And I'll still be able to pass through it. It might require some testing to ensure that this is getting the accurate time, temperature, and pressure to apply, but I'm only going to be damaging the face of the inside of the shirt instead of the outside, right? So using a lower heated platen like on the Hotronix presses really comes in the clutch. But I think that's it for the slideshow here today in the presentation. And I would be happy to answer any questions whatsoever that may be still lingering before we go in, or show any more examples, or yeah, anything else that we could wrap up here today. Like I mentioned, everybody here at Stahls in the United States, at Transfer Express, Stahls UK, and of course in Germany, around the world, in Europe, we are dedicated to your success. We are happy to help in absolutely any way that we can.
So we have had a question, Dave, around the cover sheet section. Somebody wants to know what the different cover sheets are that you'd recommend using, and which one is the most popular for DTF.
Oh, so I will say that 90% of my direct-to-film applications, I do not use a cover sheet at all. So any cover sheet on top of a transfer, so like we see in this image that we have on screen here, we're essentially, we want the heating element to pass heat to the transfer itself. So anything you're putting in the way is lowering that heat. So now you either have to increase your dwell time or increase your temperature. Paper cover sheets seem to be very, very common with any PET or plastic carrier transfers, because depending on your heat press, maybe you have a clamshell style press that opens up, and it pops open if it's like the Hotronix Auto Open, my favorite, where it might peel the transfer and jerk it. So you want to put a paper cover sheet just to eliminate static. That paper is still allowing the full heat to pass right through it, versus something, say, like a flexible application pad, the quick grip, right? So like
the
that
grip
textured
close
grip flex. Yes. So yes, like those rubber, they're like 2 mil thick, so that they block a lot. That's going to block 10, 15, maybe 20 degrees of heat. Like it could be a lot of heat that ends up blocking. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. And while the transfer might apply, that's the case where like you're going to start washing it or laundering it, and it's going to run into issues.
I think that's it for today's questions, Dave.
Awesome. Again, we're always happy to help. Reach out anytime to any of the experts, regardless of where you are in the world. We've got heat printing experts and apparel decoration experts here to help your business thrive, succeed, and all of the solutions from the heat presses to the transfers to helpful advice that's free, just like we did here today. That's going to help you reach your goals as a decorator, regardless of what they look like. And because we know we're all different.
Dave, thank you so much for doing that talk again. As I say, I know everybody that either came to P&P and missed it or didn't make it to the trade show has been begging us to put this on. So I'm sure they will be very, very grateful. We've had a lot of viewers consistently throughout the whole live here, which is great. For those of you watching that want to hear more of what Dave has to say, especially about the half tone that he was talking about, make sure you go and check out Transfer Express's YouTube channel and the Stahls TV. There's so much helpful information on there. Dave produces new videos every week with his amazing team, so check those out if you're in the industry. And make sure you subscribe to the channel you're watching on now, because we go live every single Friday. We release podcasts every single Monday, and we release new videos every single Tuesday. There's a lot going on at Stahls, as Dave said. We've got a lot of video education. So thank you, Dave, for joining us today, and we'll let you go. We've taken up an hour and a half of your time, so we'll let you go and do the Heat Press for Profit podcast, and I'm sure many of our viewers will probably follow you over there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be going live with that in just an hour and a half or so. And a great story today, talking to a great brand that's found success in a very, very short amount of time in a very crowded market. And I have not talked to her yet about the success. So I am just as interested as any of our audience members out there looking to really accelerate a brand as it relates to any market, because I mean, we're going to be attacking one of the most, not attacking, I don't want to say that, but like we're going to be diving into one of the most crowded and licensed and copyrighted markets out there. And so to talk to somebody who's found success in a very short amount of time with that and standing out in that industry and that niche, I'm real excited to dive into that conversation a little bit later today.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Make sure you guys watching go and check out that podcast episode. And it is available on demand as well, right? To watch back afterwards if they miss it live, because of the time difference. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Dave. And
Absolutely.
we'll see everybody next week for another Friday lunchtime live.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Molly.
Bye, guys.